The first thing he noticed was not the blood or the chaos or the sudden hush that fell over the grand hospital lobby. It was the way the little girl's hand trembled as she lifted two fingers to her chest and pressed them there, silently, desperately, as if her life depended on him understanding that one small motion. In that instant, as alarms began to echo and people froze in confusion, a single dad janitor realized that everything he had been surviving for years had been preparing him for the next few seconds. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and ordinary people doing extraordinary things, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that compassion still exists, sometimes in the quietest corners. Daniel Reyes had learned to live quietly. Life had taught him that making noise only attracted trouble. At 39, he moved through the world with his shoulders slightly bent, eyes down, pushing his cleaning cart through the polished halls of St. Augustine Medical Center, long before dawn, and long after most people had gone home. He wore the same faded blue uniform every night, the name tag scratched and dull, his boots always a little too worn. To most people, he blended into the background like the hum of the lights or the smell of disinfectant, present, necessary, but invisible. Once, years ago, Daniel had been something else. A husband, a man with plans. But life had collapsed in a way that didn't make headlines or inspire sympathy. His wife had died suddenly from a heart condition no one knew she had, leaving him alone with a 6-year-old daughter and a mountain of grief he couldn't afford to process. Bills didn't wait for morning. His daughter Sophia needed food, clothes, school supplies, and a father who could hold it together. So Daniel took the night janitor job because it paid steady and allowed him to be home in the mornings when Sophia woke up. Every night before his shift, he tucked Sophia into bed in their small apartment, kissed her forehead, and promised he'd be back before she woke. He lived on promises and coffee, on exhaustion and quiet determination. The hospital became his second home, its long corridors witnesses to his solitude. He cleaned blood, tears, and despair from the floors, and he did it with care, because he knew every stain belonged to someone's worst day. That morning, just before sunrise, Daniel was mopping near the main lobby when he noticed the little girl sitting alone on one of the leather benches. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her legs dangled above the floor, her shoes scuffed and mismatched. She held a small stuffed rabbit so tightly its ear was bent flat. Hospitals weren't strange to Daniel, but children alone always pulled at something raw inside him. He slowed his steps, watching quietly from a distance. The girl didn't cry. That's what unsettled him. She sat too still, eyes scanning faces as people rushed past, nurses with charts, doctors with phones pressed to their ears, families wrapped in their own worries. No one noticed her. Not yet. Then, slowly, her eyes met Daniel's. For a brief moment, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or instinct. He nodded gently, a small reassurance. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. Instead, she raised her hand and pressed 2 fingers to her chest, then pointed subtly toward the hallway behind her. Daniel's heart stuttered. He didn't know why. The gesture was small, almost nothing, but something about the urgency in her eyes made his grip tighten on the mop handle. Years of being ignored had trained him not to interfere, not to ask questions. He was just the janitor. But he was also a father. And fathers learn to listen to things that aren't said. He followed the direction of her glance with his eyes and noticed a maintenance door that should have been locked standing slightly ajar. Beyond it lay a restricted corridor leading to the older wing of the hospital, an area under renovation and usually empty at that hour. A chill crept up his spine. He looked back at the girl. She lowered her hand now, her lips pressed together as if afraid any sound might break something fragile. Daniel told himself to keep mopping, to call security maybe, to let someone else handle it. But his feet moved before his thoughts settled. He parked his cart quietly and walked toward the door, his heart pounding loud enough he was sure others could hear it. As he pushed the door open, the sterile brightness of the lobby gave way to dimmer lights and the smell of dust and old paint. The sound came next, a muffled cry, weak, strained, but unmistakable. Daniel broke into a run. He found the nurse collapsed near the end of the hallway, her back against the wall, one hand clutching her side, blood seeping between her fingers. Her face was pale, eyes unfocused, breath shallow. A fallen tray lay nearby, supplies scattered. Panic surged through him, but training, life training, not professional, kicked in. Years of caring for Sophia through fevers and scraped knees, years of watching doctors work from the sidelines, sharpened his focus. He pressed his jacket against the wound to slow the bleeding and shouted for help, his voice echoing down the empty corridor. No one answered. The nurse tried to speak but couldn't. Daniel remembered the little girl, the silent signal, the trust. He ran back toward the lobby, waving his arms, yelling now, no longer caring who saw him. People turned, startled. Security rushed in. Doctors followed. The hallway exploded into motion. Daniel stepped back as professionals took over, his hands shaking, his jacket soaked red. Only then did he realize the little girl was standing beside him now, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. She looked up at him, eyes still wide, but calmer. Relief washed over her face when she saw the flurry of activity. She nodded once, as if to say he had done exactly what she hoped he would. The aftermath unfolded quickly. The nurse survived. Doctors later said a few more minutes and the outcome would have been very different. Security footage showed the little girl trying to get help earlier, being brushed past, ignored. It showed her spotting Daniel and choosing him, the janitor, the invisible man. By mid-morning, Daniel was called into an office. He expected reprimand for leaving his duties. Instead, administrators thanked him. A police officer shook his hand. A doctor called him a hero. The word felt heavy, undeserved. Daniel kept thinking about how close it had all come to going unnoticed, how easily he could have looked away. The little girl's story came out later. Her name was Lily. Her mother was in surgery. The nurse who collapsed had been the only one who stopped to check on her earlier, promising to come back. Lily had waited. When she saw the nurse fall, fear froze her, but instinct pushed her to find someone who looked safe. Someone kind. Someone tired, maybe, but gentle. News spread fast. Social media picked it up. Headlines followed. But what mattered most to Daniel happened that evening when he returned home. Sophia listened to the story with wide eyes, pride glowing on her face. She hugged him tighter than usual and told him he was her hero. For the first time in years, Daniel let himself cry in front of her. Life didn't magically become perfect after that. Daniel still worked nights, bills still existed. Grief didn't vanish. But something shifted. He walked taller. People greeted him by name. The hospital offered him training opportunities, a chance to move into patient support. More importantly, Daniel began to believe that his quiet life mattered, that being kind, being present, was enough to change someone's world. Near the end of Lily's hospital stay, Daniel saw her one last time. She waved enthusiastically from her wheelchair, her mother beside her, tears in her eyes. Lily pressed 2 fingers to her chest again and smiled. Daniel returned the gesture, his heart full. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment now to like the video, share it, and leave a comment. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people who need hope. And before this video ends, leave a comment telling us what kindness means to you, or who you would have trusted in that moment. Because sometimes, the smallest signal can save a life. And sometimes, the most overlooked person can become the reason everything changes.